You're listening to Nurture Your Zest. I'm your host, Ashleigh King, and I will introduce you to a wealth of interesting, fascinating individuals from all walks of life who will share their stories, how they've overcome challenges, and you will find out their top tips for success. Through this podcast, you can gain tips to grow and change your life and the way you see the world, and help you to nurture your zest. Hello and welcome to Nurture Your Zest. My name is Ashleigh King and I am the founder of this podcast series. It's been running now for 3 years and I'm so excited that it's in over 70 countries around the world now. It's a really special show to me because it talks about people's stories and I get to bring you different people from different walks of life, particularly in the tech sector, the creative industries and inspirational stories. So for me, I'm so excited because I'm interviewing one of my good friends and also someone I really am inspired by. Steve Pugh from Roadmap MBA. So hi and welcome, Steve.
Hello and welcome to your setup. It's so cool.
It's quite funny, isn't it, when you go into someone else's setup since you are yourself a content creator and we've got very different styles and ways of doing things. But
that's the fun of it. It's when you get to see other people's stuff and different setups. And before we came on air, like properly nerding out on everything to do with everything. I enjoy it. It's cool.
Yeah, I think as a whole team, we all really feel inspired by you and a lot of what you've done in your studio because I say this often, but you engineer everything to within an inch of precision. So in terms of time wastage, there just isn't because you're just so
Well,
good.
I don't have a team.
That's true.
So it's the balance of when I do a podcast, I have to literally set up three computers and all this on my own whilst presenting. But I wouldn't have it any other way. So it's one day when I'm rich and famous like you, I'll have...
I'm certainly not rich and famous and you know that. But I think for me, it's just, I know that I love learning and I love the joy of learning new skills, but there's certain things that just don't seem to stick. And I think there's a value in playing to your strengths and I just love to chat. So if I can do that bit and then I can focus all my energy on that. I think people who run their own shows, but also like maybe also running a sound desk and all the other bits that go with it. And I know you do this all the time. It's just phenomenal, the amount of skills you have in multitasking. Yeah, quite special. So there's so much I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about your journey. I want to talk to you about education, why it matters to you, student poverty. I know something quite close to our hearts, making business more and education more accessible, Roadmap MBA and all of that, and how you are now in over 35 countries around the world. But I also just want to let people who've never met you before know a bit more about you. So if we say, who is Steve Pugh? Who are you?
Oh, it's a deep question. So I was born and raised in Liverpool. So basically my mom raised 2 boys. My mom was a dinner lady. I don't know if they have that in South Africa, but works in schools, feeds food to kids. So she was a dinner lady, she was a cleaner and humble upbringings. And basically when me and my brother were growing up, my mum, just to put food on the table, would work multiple jobs and work shifts. And I remember in the past she used to work Christmas Day, but that kind of all the time and night shifts. And what that did was almost instill really good work ethic in me and my brother, because actually we saw what needed to be done to provide for a family and what hard work was, and then what she was fortunate able to do, because I was the first person in my family to graduate from university. But actually the ability that she gave a platform to help me do what I've done is largely because of her, if that makes sense. But then likewise, so growing up in Liverpool, it was a completely different environment to where I live now, if that makes sense, But when I went to uni, it was a really big, so I'm a chartered mechanical engineer, so I did mechanical engineering. But actually going to Sheffield, when you're with a group of people that are from very diverse backgrounds, but also some very privileged backgrounds, it's a whole different ballgame when you're the poorest person on the course. Or even if it's a case of your friends at lunch want to go to Witherspoon's to have a meal for £3 something, and you can't afford it, but you don't really want to say that you can't afford it, but you don't have the posh clothes, you can't really afford all the stuff. And the truth is that there's millions of people around the world that are good, solid, smart, bright people, but there are barriers to growth and development that they just can't access. And the truth is, if you come from humble backgrounds, it's really hard to break out of that to get the spare cash, as you'll know, to then invest in stuff like education and training, which might have a long payback period, but actually it enables people to build a better life for themselves. So what we're trying to do with the roadmap is basically overcome all of those barriers to business education and training to help ideally 5 billion people around the world just build a better life for themselves. And it's not too, like, I love education. When I went to uni, it was the best thing I ever did. But a lot of people don't have access to that. You know, they could have kids, they could have jobs, just hundreds of different reasons. So it's just to give people an option for people that can't access other traditional forms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I love what you're doing with Roadmap MBA. I want to talk about it in quite a lot of detail in a minute, but I just love that you are so honest about your experience as a student and, you know, overcoming poverty growing up. And I think the other thing that I love listening to your story, you always talk so positively and, you know, so well about your mum and the kind of example she set for you and your brother. And just how much that stayed with you, the work ethic it's developed. I think it's really beautiful to have that respect for your family members and just see the sacrifices they've made. But also, you know, how many jobs she worked and being the first person in your family to go to university. How does that feel to you?
To graduate.
Other
people went,
right.
but they didn't finish.
And is that also linked to, I mean, I know this is on my mind because we've been talking about it a lot this week around student poverty, but is that because of other pressures that came up?
I would have to let them people speak for themselves.
Yeah.
But what it does do, and you covered it in your podcast the other day, is the fact that most people, if you come from regular or underprivileged backgrounds, have to work a job when they go to uni. And the truth is that if you have to work, even my wife, Lisa, she's a partner in a law firm now, as you know. But, you know, she worked in Pizza Hut for 10 to 15 hours a week while she was doing law. But the point is that's 10 to 15 hours that you're not spending in the textbooks, talking to tutors, doing networking, doing all that stuff. And it's the inherent disadvantage that people who have less money have to overcome just to have a level playing field. So it's that kind of thing of just, you know, that to me stays with me. But even, you know, I only started to work for myself maybe 3 years ago, but I've had some really good jobs in the past. But I still remember going on, what sounds silly, but it was a stag do with quite a posh group of friends. And the amount of money they wanted to spend on stuff still makes me feel uncomfortable, even though I could afford it. But the point is the mindset that I think you develop coming from certain backgrounds, you never lose that. So even if in 10 years' time, I've got £100 million in the bank, I still look for the bargains. I still look for the right thing to do. But also I see stuff in the same mindset that people do. If you're on 18 grand a year, you got 2 kids, you're worried about your benefit payments, cost of living's going up, but you put there'll be millions of people worried about Christmas. But the point is I have family that still fall into that category, that I empathize with it as opposed to just being oblivious to it, if that makes sense. And it's just one of those things, especially this time of the year, what I hate is the idea that people have to choose between their education or feeding their kids. And the truth is, and you'll know it, there'll be loads of students out there that are 9 grand a year, they're leaving with 50, 60 grand's worth of debt, that in interest rates the way they are, they might never pay off. That's going to affect their ability to get a mortgage. And all of these different things are going to disadvantage them against people that came from privilege, that didn't have to borrow student debt or money, that probably will get a bigger deposit from their parents to help them buy the house, so their monthly interest repayments are lower. But the point is there's a systemic system that is disadvantages people from regular backgrounds, and it's that we're trying to fight against. And there's only so much one person can do, because I don't have a team, I do it all myself. But I believe what we're doing. And the hope is that even when I speak to people in like Pakistan and Ukraine who use the course, and I spoke to a lady who takes her roadmap book on the tube, I know we're on the right track, but I had to learn it from scratch, actually doing it the hard way. But through doing that, I think we've got something that's better than what's currently out there. So
I agree. I'm really excited about the Roadmap MBA as a product, because I feel like, as someone who's studied a master's in business administration and MBA via traditional routes, it's a great opportunity and it's a wonderful thing to do. However, the opportunity costs of being in education, I knew that I wanted to do that full time because I've studied part-time before and I know how hard it was. So I thought, well, yeah, I'll go and I'll commit this year and it's going to be so intense. But I think even now, I mean, I'm still paying my student loan back, and I'm not just paying my tuition fees, government loaned funds. I had to take out additional loans, and Straight after graduating, I took a corporate job for about 10 months. And I could have stayed there longer term, and I loved it. I loved the work I did, but I just felt a calling to do something else. And that means that for a long time, I can see myself paying these various loans back. But it also lights a fire under me because I know that what I'm doing has so much purpose, just like what you're doing. So I love that there is an alternative way to study and learn.
One of the big things that was really important to me was that so I've spent realistically up until now probably £180,000 to get to this point. And it's almost where not many people could do what we've done, because for one, we had to completely rewrite an entire business curriculum from scratch on every single topic to make it accessible. But then you go through all the setup of the studio and the branding and the website and the app and all the stuff that's coming. But then to do all that and then give it away for free, you would never get a commercial backing VC firm or whatever to back that venture because it doesn't make sense. But we're not doing it to make sense. But the thing that was really important to me, what I didn't want was that because we do have some paid tiers to what we do, but I didn't want people that can't afford the paid tier to get worse information, because that is perpetuating part of the same system. So the idea is that someone in Bangladesh with a mobile phone, because 86% of the world's population have a smartphone, can get access to the exact same information that you use to grow a business. And there's no barrier. Does that make sense? And but you have to live it and breathe it. That I think, ironically, a lot of people that make decisions about organizations or even that run edtech startups, like one of my big things was that I'm thinking about applying to Y Combinator next year, which, and one of the big things that they always say to people is, you should give up work and work full-time in your startup and make it run it. But the truth is, people from poorer backgrounds can't afford to do that, because you can't afford to not pay your mortgage or feed your kids for 6 months. But the point is, even the people that we celebrate as being the champions, best in the world, and I want to work with them, their own system still fundamentally discriminates against people from poorer backgrounds. And it's that which I think we can do better.
I agree. And I think one of the things, so I know we've spoken about this before, but there's an artist I like who created a comic called The Privilege Comic, and it talks about two different points of view, and it kind of looks at the stereotypical viewpoint that we might have around money and class and experience. And there's an example of a student who's at a networking event, a very posh dude talking to all these really influential people about how hard it is for her to get a job and all these things. And then there's another student that's waiting tables at that same event. And so the person who's talking about how hard it is from a much more privileged background, has the privilege of being able to spend all their time in the library and go to influential, well-connected networking events and be a guest. Whereas the other person is juggling multiple roles, family responsibilities. I think as well, we're starting to talk about this more, the reality of education. So if people are, for instance, a parent or a carer, if they've got someone in their family that's maybe going through something that they need to support them through, and they're trying to study. I think for me, one of the challenging things working in higher education was watching the decisions made on personal extenuating circumstance PEG committees, because of course, students go through really difficult things, but to see how some decisions are made what's a priority and what's not, how do you know that something is impacting someone's life in a particular way, and how can you grade that? I think it's a truly difficult discussion to have. So I think I'm excited that there is another way to study, and also the production quality, as you mentioned, you are doing it all yourself, but I mean, it's high spec. It really is. And I love that about what you're doing. Because
I think the other thing that goes back to universities, I love universities, I love learning, I love the theory. But if you go onto an MBA business course and you do the strategy module, they give you a 700-page textbook to go through and talk about Porter's 5 forces and all this stuff. If you're a single mom feeding your kids and working multiple jobs, you can't read that book. But the point is, it wasn't just a case of take the information that's out there and make it free. We had to rethink it all from scratch, rewrite the whole thing about what actually works, so that people, again, this is the big thing, is that there'll be millions of people around the world at the moment that want to start a business and just make what they do profitable to pay their bills and feed their kids at Christmas. But the challenge to make money in the next month, otherwise you can't pay your rent, is a different challenge than you could go to Harvard Business School, the best business school in the world. You're not going to get taught how to do that. But the point is, you need different products with different people at different times in their lives. And there's also a chap that I was introduced to who's unfortunately dead, but I was introduced to his work called Sir Ken Robinson. I've mentioned it before. But it's almost, so he was born in my hometown. He grew up a few miles from where I did. And he went on to be a world expert in education. But his big thing was actually to do with education around the world is still a cookie cutter approach, where basically there's a curriculum and they just force it on people. And they assume that the people can absorb the curriculum, figure out how to use it, and then, improve their kind of lives. But what you really need in education is the ability to customize content so that your approach is completely different to mine, is different to other people's. That actually tailoring customized education is the future. And actually that's something we've got coming next year. But nobody's ever done it before. But I know how to do it. It's just a case of pushing boundaries and trying to do stuff that's never been done. But it's not to be clever, it's to help solve that single mom that wants to start a business. She's got 2 months to make money. If she just gets given an MBA business course curriculum, it won't help her. You need to actually say, no, do that, then do that, do that. And that's what we're really trying to rethink about the whole learning and development space, as opposed to just do free business education.
Yeah. It's actually really inspiring to me because I've only just clicked. You talk often about the single mom who needs to make her rent. And obviously that's your mom and your background. And I'd never realized before, but I have just now. And so it's amazing to me how many people in some way go back to formative learning experiences from when they were younger. I'm really touched by that, actually, just thinking about it. But what I was going to say is, you have got a very strong goal and mission and focus, and I love that. And I love that every day you're tweaking things, tiny things, and you try and you look. And so one of our colleagues that we know, Anne English, often talks about, go back and look at the people you look up to, look at their firsts. And I was actually, because you know this already, but I think a great deal of you and your journey. And I was looking at some of the first podcasts. I was your first podcast guest.
Awful.
Awful. And I was looking at things like just some of your first live streams and just the development of the tech that you've invested in, the skills that you've learned, the things you've done. I find just so incredible, because every single time, tiny tweaks, you know.
You know what's funny? So literally yesterday, I made a new press page for the website.
Yeah.
Because press and PR on the story is really important to us. That'll be a big thing that we're starting to push. Just from yesterday, there's been 149 revisions.
Wow.
And it's that tweak and it's the iteration. I'll go in, I'll leave it, I'll come back, change the word, remove the comma. And I say unfortunately, it's just how my brain works. That I'm one of these people that I just constantly do that, to just iterate and improve all the time. But that's what makes me happy, because the other side as well is that loads of people, as a management consultant, I can get paid quite a lot of money. And the selfish part of me could say, why are you spending all this money on this project that you're not making any money from? But that's not why I'm doing it. And it's almost at the point where, so I'm 39 now, I'll be 40 next year. But it's the bigger mission, it's the legacy. And likewise, my stepbrother Ian, he's got a few kids, and one of them, Ethan's really smart. He's 11 now. But the truth is, the way things currently are, they will not be able to afford to go to uni, 100%. And uni isn't right for everyone, but for some people, it is the right thing to do. But it breaks my heart to think that in 7 years' time, he has ambitions to do something, and that door is closed to him. And then even my cousin Josh, that actually went to Sheffield to do engineering where I went, but he got the grades to go into Cambridge. And he was really excited, went down for the interview, passed the interview, but he wasn't selected by a college, because they have to, like a college system, because he wasn't the Prime Minister's nephew or whatever. But the point is, they always talk about how, oh yeah, we recruit people from different backgrounds and we do this. But at a certain point, hidden or not, there's a selection process where I guarantee that if he was Barack Obama's cousin or someone famous, or he went to Eton or whatever, there's a chance he would have got in. And I hate that. And he worked hard, got the grades, everything, and they didn't want him. And that breaks my heart.
It does. And it's that sense of rejection as well. I think it's really interesting talking about big institutions, because I think there's a shift coming for higher education, and I'm so here for it. But one of the things that I wanted to say is, my sister is one of the smartest people I've ever known. She can speak French, Spanish, Arabic, Polish, and German.
Wow.
And my younger brother speaks German, Russian, and Italian, I think. He's still on his learning adventures. He's learning Chinese and Japanese as well. They love their languages.
Yeah.
But she actually got into Cambridge, went down and looked at Cambridge and Oxford. She had, all A's and A stars for all of her grades. And what she found was that actually she went to Exeter, which is in the top universities in the UK. But she didn't want to go to Cambridge because the experience she had when she went to visit was that it wasn't going to be something where she would be able to fit in or afford it or feel safe or thrive. She felt that she would have to morph into a stereotype or, perhaps spend money she didn't have, or she just didn't see how that could work for her. And to be honest, what I love about her, as well as being smart, is she doesn't really do conformity. So she can say, like, she doesn't believe in just doing things to kind of like go with the flow. And I love that about her. And I think it's a question that we should have, because yes, it's great that we have universities that do have widening participation schemes and they have bursaries, but actually the cost of education is enormous. The overheads around university structures and administration. I know some of my colleagues, for instance, have done fabulous degrees, film, video, all kinds of things. And they've actually said that the stuff that they preferred was the college, the technical production elements, because they felt that their university experience was a waste of time in many ways. Lecturers not coming or showing up on time, strikes. These are some of the issues I think we have. I think there's complacency around the delivery of education standards. And I think just looking at my own experience studying online at times, and I know we've talked about this, people want bite-size, accessible content that is glossy or feels modern, feels that the investment that you're making matches what you're getting.
Well, I hope so. But just on your last point, it's the fact that we shouldn't miss that we only know our own viewpoint, and we're both white, and from relatively first world parts of the world. Imagine if you're not. And that's what breaks my heart. So we, at least, or your sister, got the interview at Cambridge, but you could be from Rwanda, brilliantly bright. Don't even get the chance. And it's the ability to try and change that, I think, is but it's such a big problem to solve. That one of the things that we try and do on the roadmap, obviously, is the diversity of thought and opinion. So there's Ifeanyi, there's you, there's me, and hopefully in the future more. But it's almost that we'd say your show, you have complete remit to talk about anything you want. But that's acknowledging the point that your viewpoint with your background is 100% different from mine. But that's why I think it works well, because you're completely different to I am.
Yeah.
But there'll be so many issues out there that I don't even know about that I'm open to learn. But the issue is, it's who are the people making decisions? Are they, if they're brutally honest, actually open to stuff? Do they actually want the best people, or are they looking to make a profit? Because there's, the two don't go together. Do you know what I mean? So the whole UK university thing at the moment, where they're saying that they might put the fees up to 24,000 a year. Yes, you're going to have overseas international students that are from very rich backgrounds can afford it, but then you're going to exclude 98% of the regular UK working population. Why? Do you know what I mean? It's not for, and yes, you will get some people that say, oh yeah, but we give out 10 scholarships a year. There's 77 million people in the UK. There's 7.7 billion people worldwide. It doesn't work, does it?
Yeah. So. I think another alternative as well is also apprenticeships. I mean, if I could go back now, possibly would look at an apprenticeship, just because of the costs of going to university. So the intended tuition fees you're talking about is what I was looking at for my master's program. And I was very fortunate to have a scholarship, so a partial scholarship. But even with a partial scholarship, I worked throughout my degree, and I found it hugely challenging, and it really did impact my mental health. And looking back, I think there are things I could have done to prepare for that and to mitigate that, but I didn't really understand the reality of those things. I think that there is a big shift coming in terms of the getting up to date and current and in UK education. But I also wanted to talk a little bit. We've spoken about that single drive, that single focus, and I wanted to talk about your ambitions. You know, you talked about Y Combinator.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a huge goal, and that's not a local Northeast goal. That's like a global goal. But also to do something like Y Combinator, you change your entire life. And so how does a dream like that happen?
So Y Combinator isn't the goal. That's just one tool that we can use to help achieve the goal. So I've self-funded and bootstrapped everything so far. And I kind of love it because my day job is to grow and turn around companies. And that's what I do all day, every day. But there's a certain point where, imagine in the future, so like today I approached Prince's Trust, SmartWorks, the Scout Association, because I've got links there, and a few other charities. One is an Alabama outreach association that are trying to do good with business. But the point is working with partners to really spread the word and give free access to all of the stuff. But imagine they say, oh, Steve, this is brilliant. Can you come and speak on the stage in TEDx in New York? Actually, no, I can't because I'm doing the marketing for the firm in Newcastle. There's a certain point where I can't bootstrap it. I can't walk to the moon is the analogy that, that is it the right option to bootstrap forever and maybe help 100,000 people, which would be amazing. Or if I get rid of my ego and actually get extra support to drive the mission, we could help 1 billion people. And the truth is, the goal is about helping people and giving people the support that I never had 20 years ago, regardless of if I'm involved or not or whatever. It's about the outcome. So the big difference is in the whole Y Combinator thing is that what you've got is a lot of, yes, it's the world's best startup accelerator, but also they comfortably look to raise tens of millions of pounds. That's realistically, if you're trying to build the next Uber, in terms of like Airbnb scale, size, scope, you can't do that with UK-based providers. Prime example was I got some feedback from someone yesterday that were like, I know you don't have enough revenue, so we're not interested. But the point is, they're looking at it from a purely commercial way, but I don't need them to do that. If I want to get to the moon, it's either that all or nothing. But one of the big things that they teach you in Cubs and Scouts is to, always do your best. And then would on my deathbed, I look back and think, I really should have gone for it and actually just try and, even if it explodes in 6 months' time, I at least tried. And I think that's the route I'm going to go down. And even if they reject me, it's not rejection, it's just redirection, isn't it, you'd say. But it's part of the journey. And then ironically, one of my other friends always talks about this, and a great example, do you know Michael Flatley, who's the dancer? So when he was originally looking to launch Lord of the Dance, he was obviously very famous at what he did, and he went to a whole series of investors and said, look, I want to do this show. I'm really proud of it. What do you think? And they were like, actually, yeah, it's brilliant. You can make a fortune. Yeah, we want to invest. And what he did was turn down all the investment, and he just used it as a way to validate his idea. And I was like, that's clever. But the point being, if it might be that Y Combinator say, we like that, but we want you to change. We want to do this, this, and this. But if they think it's a good idea, it's that validation to think, actually, I will go even more all in or not, or whichever. But the truth is, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. I just know where I want to get to. And then that's one way to potentially do that. But then likewise, working with presenters and stuff like yourself, doing organic outreach with the press and just trying to talk about stuff, because it's all, again, it's not about me or the business. It's helping the people that want to start a business, or they've already started a business, they're not making any money, just to help them pay their bills and just do what they want to do. That's what it's all for. So
I think it's wonderful. I mean, I'm really honored to be a guest presenter on Roadmap MBA. I think it's so fun. I enjoy it. But what I like most is the opportunity to share whatever I want. And sometimes I'm thinking, how am I going to find, I'm sure I'll run out of topics, but it's so interesting because what happens is you watch the news, you hear things, you chat to people, and somehow every time you present, there's a new topic. So next week, I'll be presenting on social enterprise and creating shared value, and I'm really excited about that. But I think even from that perspective, I love that you're uplifting voices. So you are uplifting Ifeanyi's voice, you're uplifting my voice, and I think as well it's also such a learning curve for me. So there's a difference between interviewing and public speaking and live presenting. Live presenting is a whole journey, and you do all of the behind the scenes yourself. So I'm very grateful when I do it, because you press all the buttons. But I mean, it's some system you've got set up. If anyone's listening or watching, I'll put a link into the 360 of what it's like behind the scenes on a presenting day. It's quite fun.
But saying the 360 thing is that if you look at any business strategy textbook, what they always say to people, and it's what they said to Steve Jobs when he went back to Apple, is that they were like, how are you going to turn around the company? And he said, I'm going to wait for the next big thing, which turned out to be the iPhone. And then he put all his eggs in that one basket, and then it took off and it went great. But the idea is, say with the 360 video, I can imagine a future where actually you could be anywhere in the world, you've got a pair of glasses on or contacts or whichever, and you can feel like you're in the room talking to you and listening to you like we're talking now. So why not pioneer how to use that tech now, so that if it takes off in the metaverse in a few years' time, we're ahead of all the universities and everyone else. And, a lot of it's horrible and really difficult to do, but actually I like trying it.
I love it. I love how you learn, and I learn so much from you every day. It's tiny. One of your favorite sayings is just tiny little tweaks every day. So I love that. So, I mean, you've got some really amazing goals there. What I want to ask you is about burning out. So how on earth do you protect yourself and your energy when you work so hard? And honestly, you work harder than anyone I know.
Probably do.
You do, and it's true. Yeah. How do you protect your energy?
Well, the truth is, just before Christmas, I was working too hard, because the challenge always is that I'm quite diligent as a person, so that when even doing this interview, I'll be getting inbox emails. Yeah. And it's just, I always want to react and do stuff quickly, but I also needed to earn the money to then fund everything else I'm doing. And the truth is that it's difficult whenever anyone starts a business, because you never want to turn down work in case it's the last check you ever get. Again, but this comes back to your upbringing. Sorry. But this comes back to your upbringing purely because if you come from privilege, there's always a safety net. There's always someone that can bail you out. There's something. But people that have had to work really hard to get to where they are, nobody's going to help you. You have to do it. So it's always that balance of how do you self-fund and keep going? Because actually, if that contract disappears, can you pay your rent? If you lose that one, do you have to give up everything you do? Do you have to get a job again? And it's that doing it. But so to balance burnout, realistically, I probably do 7:30 till 6:30 every day, Monday to Friday. Some nights I do an 8 p.m. session, so I'll be in the office till 9 p.m. So that's 7:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. On Saturday mornings with my wife, we go and get coffee in Newcastle, and it's just nice for us to kind of reconnect. Sorry, my voice again. But then actually, after like a morning off, I feel like I've refreshed myself and I'll probably start working again. It sounds terrible. And do bits and bobs on Saturday afternoon, bits on my own stuff. But the truth is, it's about managing how much stuff you do and don't take on and take off. The challenge I've got now is actually to start to wean off my paid work, just to force me to focus more on the startup and actually do the stuff that I need to do, which I know is the right thing to do, but it's also scary to turn down contracts that are worth $2,000 a month when that could feed a family of four for, you know what I mean? It's that nuance of you don't want to turn anything down, but also you need to look after yourself. But I have burnt out, and actually I'm better now at doing stuff. I'm still struggling, and actually I'm technically over capacity at the moment. But it's part of the bigger vision. And people always say, well, when you have the vision, that's what I'm working towards, which it is. And I could just give up and just play Xbox and stuff, but it's what makes me happy. It's what lights me up. You know what I mean? The other side to it as well is that I didn't always have the vision to, help 5 billion people. But actually, some people to relax or as a hobby, do photography, they play guitar, they learn languages, whatever. I do this. This is my hobby. So when I'm tweaking and playing with stuff, I actually enjoy doing it. So therefore, it's always that balance. But again, I need to be conscious not to ruin my marriage because I'm so focused on one thing that'll make me unhappy, and it's difficult.
Resonate with that so much. I think sometimes a lot of entrepreneurs say this, you just fall in love with your business. You fall in love with your mission and your why and what you want to do. And then sometimes when we do burn out, actually we start to resent that. And so it's really important that you don't lose your mission or your why, but also the relationships around you, your marriage, your things in your life that are really special. And I know for sure that I've definitely hyper focused on certain activities, my masters or other things. And I think having that time for you, that sacred Saturday morning of going and grabbing coffee and going for a little stroll around is really important.
But I think the thing for me, it's just the fact that I am good at this, but it got me as well. The point is it will catch up with anyone. Doesn't matter how invincible you think you are. Like I'm more humble now than I maybe was when I was younger, when I had this raw talent.
Yeah.
But it will build up. It guarantee it.
Absolutely.
And it's diffusing that bomb once a week or every so often that you can work at a high level for maybe 2 months flat out, but then you're just going to go off the cliff.
Yeah.
So you need pace.
And you've got to protect your energy. And I'm really grateful for you as a mentor, because I feel like often you'll have that word with me, and you'll be one of the jokes we often have is about networking, and you'll just say like, when are you doing any work, Mrs.? And like, it is a good reminder. It's nice to have people in your life who say things honestly, and I think that's really special. So what can you share with us about any like secrets or updates or new things coming with Roadmap MBA or Steve?
Yeah, so the big one's the app, which is going to launch realistically January. Company around the corner, working on it, doing a really good job. But it's the real crux. And originally it was an idea, it was a side thought. But when I discovered Sir Ken Robinson, it really cemented it. And it's the whole customization of education. Because for one with the roadmap, I've never seen anyone anywhere in the world put the whole business growth process in a single book and I've never seen anyone do that. But I've certainly never seen anyone actually give people customization in terms of if you're struggling with these things, you do that, then that, then that. But someone completely different with completely different challenges, well, actually, you should do this first, or a student do that. But the whole approach to completely customized adult learning and professional development has never been done before. And throughout my career, I've done a few things that have never been done before. And it's almost that, if I can crack that, which I know how to do, it's just however we do it as well as possible, I'm quite excited about that. And it's just, that'll be the real killer feature. It's not the feature of the business isn't free business education. It's the way that we look at problems. It's the way that we keep kind of improving, but it's all about making it accessible. And that's the real gem that I don't think anyone else has.
I love it, and I'm excited because what a cool adventure to be on and to be part of the ride. So thank you. Okay, so I've got my favorite question, which what is your number one word to nurture your zest?
I can't remember. Is it the same one I used last time, which was Flourish? Am I allowed to have that? It
probably was Flourish.
I think it was. So the truth is that with I'm obviously old now, but one of my friends that I went to uni with, Josh, he's a philosophy professor back at Sheffield University, but we've known each other. We played on the basketball team for a long time, so we've known each other for 20 years. And go back 4 or 5 years, I was in a job, and to the world, it seemed like a brilliant job, and I was floating companies on the stock market and all this kind of stuff, but I was miserable, hated it, hated the people, everything about it. And when we went and we had coffee, and again, his viewpoint, he's French-American kind of background, but from a philosophy point of view, and he basically said, look, Steve, are you flourishing? And what he meant was, and when we talked it through, was that every single point in my career, and I've had loads of setbacks and stuff, but I always felt that I was learning and developing and learning new skills and doing stuff, but progressing. And in that one particular job, I just wasn't. I was wilting. I was literally dying. And it was just when he said it, and I thought, that's so true. And then actually, I had a redirection, decided to not take another job, start on my own. And actually, but it's the idea that you need the environment to really mentally stimulate you and get you excited. And actually, but like a plant, you still need all the stuff to really grow and thrive. And I went through a period when I didn't have that, but actually that one conversation changed my life, I guess. So Flourish.
Flourish. I love it. It's beautiful. And I can genuinely see you flourishing so much. And I think you not only flourish yourself, but you make spaces where others can flourish too. So I'm really, really excited about Roadmap MBA. I'm excited about the future of business education, accessible education, and just what you're building.
Hopefully.
You've been listening to Nurture Your Zest, and I've been your host, Ashleigh King. You can find us online on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn at Nurture Your Zest, as well as our website and YouTube channel. If you've liked our episode today, please give us a follow or leave a review or any comments. We love reading these. We look forward to catching up with you again soon as you learn to nurture your zest.